Okay, there have been several moments this week where it made it pretty clear to anybody with two eyes that Trump doesn't exactly have it all together. It's not all with it going on there. And he held a cabinet meeting this week, and this was quite something because during this cabinet meeting, which he called on Iran, a war he started that we're still in the middle of, he spent 9 minutes talking about the reflecting pool. And I am not going to bore you with the 9 minutes of the reflecting pool, but just a sample of this is just going to give you a sense of his frame of mind right now.
We have one in particular, a very long lake, we call it, the reflecting lake.
The reflecting lake that he's referring to there, which is not a reflecting lake, is very much the historic reflecting pool that we all know sits in our nation's capital that he's spending a lot of money on currently. And where is that reflecting pool?
Between the Lincoln Monument.
The Lincoln Memorial? You mean the Lincoln Memorial, not the Lincoln Monument? Okay. Well, how big is this?
You take a look at between Lincoln and Washington, you have the longest, like 2,400 feet long. That's longer than the tallest building in the world if you set it on the side.
Okay, not 2,400 feet, 2,038 feet. Also, definitely not the tallest building, longer than the tallest building in the world, which is actually the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, and it's more than 2,700 feet tall. Does everybody know that? Probably not. But if you don't know it and you're the president of the United States, maybe you shouldn't use it as an example. I told you I was going to spare you. I'm not going to show you more of the cabinet meeting, but good Lord, does that not tell you something about Trump's frame of mind? Speaking of people who were in that cabinet meeting and in that cabinet room, there's always competition for who is the biggest clown of the cabinet of the week. And this week, we had nearly a tie, because RFK Jr., otherwise known as still currently the Secretary of Health and Human Services, well, he is, with everything going on, a possible Ebola outbreak, with all of the health crises that we have happening in this country, this is what he was up to this week.
Honey,
So, what are they? Well, they're having sex, so what were they?
Okay.
Are they biting?
Yeah. honey, let it go. Oh my God.
Jesus, the mouths are huge.
Again, lots of things that man could be working on. Maybe it's actually better he's wrestling snakes and not doing more damage to our public health system. Maybe it is better. But he is not even the winner this week because that wasn't enough for him to beat out Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth, for the second week in a row. I don't know if you get 5 times. Maybe there's an award for 5 times. It's Pete Hegseth, because Pete Hegseth at the cabinet meeting, I almost felt this wasn't real when I saw it, but I just have to play it because it is so kiss-assy. It's disgusting, and we just have to watch it.
I think actually your efforts on the reflecting pool are actually a great segue. If you look at Washington and Lincoln, these are two men that faced monumental tasks and stood up in historic fashion and delivered for the American people. And when you step back and look at 47 years of what Iran waged war against us and our people, there's only one man over the course of both presidency who has stood up and said they will never get a nuclear weapon, as Marco said. So whether it was Qasem Soleimani, whether it was scrapping the Obama deal that was going to give him a weapon, whether it was the 12-day war or Operation Midnight Hammer, you created the conditions to ensure the American people and the world are safeguarded from this generational threat.
It's not funny, but it is so over the top. First of all, Trump looks bored or sleepy. I'm not even totally clear what's going on there. While Pete Hegseth is absolutely laying a big smooch on his butt. Trump seems bored by it. I don't even know. But the thing is Pete Hegseth just compared him to Washington and Lincoln. For what? For what? The reflecting pool, which Trump had a no-bid contract. It's over budget. It is delayed. They're not even fixing the holes and they're painting it bright blue. That's the reflecting pool. Then there's the Iran war that Trump started. So that's what was up with Pete Hegseth. That's what came out of his mouth at the cabinet meeting. I don't even know that Trump was impressed by it, or maybe he was embarrassed. I don't know what's going on with him. But Pete Hegseth, 2-time winner. Congrats to you, buddy. Okay. Now, there were some good moments, highlights of this week. The News Emmys were this week. I was actually there. I got to present some awards, but I had to leave before this key moment happened because I did my show. And this is a young man named Santiago Campos. And Santiago Campos, he is a student journalist. He won a scholarship named after the incredible journalist, 60 Minutes journalist, Mike Wallace. And his submission, you should know, was it took a look at the immigration crackdown happening across this country that so many communities have been experiencing, that so many people have been terrorized by. So CBS was kind of a part of the sponsor of this, and he got up to give his remarks, and I just have to say, here's what he had to say.
While I want to thank CBS News for funding this generous gift towards my education, I want to also acknowledge how the recent direction of the outlet stains the legacy of Mike Wallace, the namesake of this scholarship. As corporate elites take hold, over the very pipes through which our information flows, journalism that serves the people becomes increasingly harder to come by, yet ever more crucial. And what the people want is the truth. So if at any time you hesitate to utter the word genocide or remain silent in the face of blatant lies, remember to ask yourself, who is this for? I hope you choose us. Thank you.
All right, Santiago, first of all, right next to him, CBS 60 Minutes journalist who was clapping while he was talking. I'm just going to note that. That guy is a student journalist. He had the courage to stand up and do that. Boy, should that gave me hope. It should certainly give you hope too, because that takes some guts, especially given the room he was talking to. And he got some applause, so that's notable too. Okay, speaking of politics, that's not about politics, but this is about politics. Texas. We've been talking a lot about Texas. I'm sure you've thought about Texas. You've heard about Texas. It's been all over the news. This week, the Texas Republicans finally decided who their nominee was going to be. They decided that their nominee was going to be Ken Paxton. Not even perhaps, the most corrupt person who is on the ballot. The man has a rap sheet that is so extensive and so long, and that's just things he's done in office. His wife is also filing for divorce on biblical grounds. There's a lot about this guy, okay? Now, this moment is giving Democrats the best chance they've had probably in decades to win a statewide seat. Democrats have not won statewide since 1994 in Texas. And that is freaking Republicans out. And you know it's freaking them out for a range of reasons. One, they're talking about how much money this is going to cost. There are blind quotes in the New York Times saying that it could be $100 million to try to keep elect Ken Paxton over James Tallarico. Still think James Tallarico could also win this one. And then it's the name calling. And this is the part that is so pathetic, because the name calling is what they're trying to do is they're trying to kind of emasculate Tallarico. They're trying to make him seem like he is not a strong man in the state of Texas. So therefore people can't elect him. They're calling him Talafrico. They are saying he's a vegan or a vegan, as Trump actually pronounced it a couple of weeks ago. And on the Talafrico front, I just want to note this, because that was one of their big things. Talafrico, he's so kind of out there. And here's what Tallarico did, which I think is quite good. He kind of owned it. Remember the Let's Go Brandon whole thing that was screamed at Joe Biden? That's what this reminds me of, where you flip it around and make it a positive. And this is what Tallarico said at his rally this week about it.
I also saw that Ken Paxton started calling me Talafrico, and I am proud to announce that we have I'm a Talafrico t-shirts on our website. So when you go home tonight, make sure you grab one.
they're not cheap. They're not like $10 t-shirts. They're probably making a lot of money off of these Telefrico t-shirts. It's a brilliant move. So bravo to him. But it's not just that. The Voldemort of politics, Stephen Miller, decided he was going to go after Tallarico, and he posted about him. He basically called Tallarico a transgender candidate. You can see this on a screenshot. The Democrats made history in Texas by nominating their first transgender Senate candidate. First of all, he's not transgender. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But also, he just has been defending transgender kids, which he is not backing away from. Good on him. But Stephen Miller can't handle that, of course, because again, he is the Voldemort character of the Republican Party. Now, this is my favorite part, because what did the Democrats do? I think there's a new comms person at the party, because this was their reply, which I wasn't even sure it was real at first. Shut up, you ugly I'm just reading it. You can see it on your screen. That's what it says. Now, predictably, look at how many views are there for 34.2 million views. There we go. Now, predictably, the Republican Party, some in the Republican Party, some in right-wing media, are pearl clutching the hell out of this thing. They cannot stand it. How could you use that language against Stephen Miller of all people? Because he is obviously the beacon of civility and goodness in this country. I say not in any way seriously. And one of the headlines that the Daily Wire, right? Ben Shapiro's website. More love, tolerance, and civility from the Dems with a heart emoji. Are you effing kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me with that? There are so many things we could list that they have not been outraged about over the course of several years, including nearly everything the President of the United States does. But let's just look at the week that is this week, okay? Markwayne Mullin, the Secretary of Homeland Security at the cabinet meeting, here's what he had to say, which they were not outraged about.
It shows this radical left Democrats' priorities when they decide to go out and protest a detention center where we're housing rapists, child predators, murderers, drug dealers, and they choose Memorial Day of all the time to go protest something that they say that that it's because they're on a hunger strike, when there was only a handful of individuals that was refusing to eat because they want their ethnic group or their ethnic right food. Well, they can go back to their country and get whatever food they want. The fact is, we're giving them the calories they want. This isn't Holiday Inn.
Did you see Howard Lutnick of Epstein Island fame nodding and smiling there? I would note that as well. That was Markwayne Mullin. Pretty uncivil, isn't it? Pretty disgusting. Not exactly projecting love there from Markwayne Mullin. Was there a headline from the Daily Wire? I think you know the answer to that. So please spare me with all of this. Okay, we talk a lot about people in the Trump administration. Boy, do they do a lot for us to talk about. But there are a lot of people who do things that are enraging. And one of those people in the last couple of weeks is the Democratic governor of Colorado, Jared Polis. Now, he's done a lot of good things for Colorado, but this is not a good thing. Because a couple of weeks ago, he decided to commute the sentence of former county clerk and 2020 election denier, that's the key part, Tina Peters. She, again, county clerk from Mesa County, Colorado. She also was found guilty of several felonies for the role she played in the 2020 election scheme, including tampering with voting tabulators after the 2020 election. Okay, so she did some real things. She was tried in a court of law. She was convicted. She was sent to jail. And she was given a 9-year sentence. Now, she's going to get out next week now. And Governor Polis's argument is, well, that was a really long sentence. Boo-hoo. She's an election denier who tampered with the election in 2020. Also, there are a lot of people who have long sentences. You could say commute a lot of people in Colorado who maybe have been put in jail for nonviolent drug offenses. Maybe you're already doing that. You could do more. I'm sure you could find people who are more deserving than Tina Peters, is my point. Or maybe do a whole slew of them together. That's all possible. Now, the question is, what is the real reason for this? Is the real reason for this actually because Jared Polis, a Democratic governor, was so concerned about the length of the time that Tina Peters, an election denier who meddled with the election, had to spend in jail? That seems unlikely, doesn't it? Well, here's the thing. the Trump administration has threatened to hold up funding for Colorado. We know that that's been out there. And the question is, did Governor Polis commute the sentence in order to try to avoid that? And guess who answered a version of that question out loud? Lauren Boebert, of all people, because here's what Lauren Boebert said. We were told that Tina was the reason we couldn't get water. Thank you for saying the quiet part out loud, Lauren Boebert. Here's the thing, though. We've learned a lot over the last year and a half since Trump has been in office. I mean, we remember early on when he was threatening businesses and law firms and universities, and some of them media companies, and some of them were buckling to him. But what did we learn? If you give the bully your lunch money, the bully's going to come back for more. And that's, Governor Polis, a lesson for you. You gave the bully your lunch money. You let out Tina Peters. Guess what he's going to come back for? Probably more. Maybe he's going to threaten water funding. Maybe he's going to threaten something else. And he knows he can take your lunch money now. Now, as for Governor Polis, the Democrats in Colorado decided to I should say the Colorado Democratic Party censored Polis. So he's feeling the criticism for that. And this was him on a Zoom call this week. Yeah. Here's the thing. You did this to yourself. Did you not expect people in your own party to be pissed off about it? It's pretty obvious they would be. Okay. In a couple weeks where there have been, I don't know, some bizarre people to applaud or criticize, Polis is one of them. Megyn Kelly, I have to say, who would have thought I'd be enthusiastically nodding my head in agreement with Megyn Kelly? But Megyn Kelly, I want to play what she had to say recently because I agree with a lot of it.
I have to be honest, I didn't expect the corruption to be quite as, widespread as it's been, and like the self-dealing and the lining of his and his family's pockets. Like that's been a little shocking.
Talking
and
billions
I
of dollars.
Expect Trump to be so disrespectful of his base. I've never seen a family get so rich off of a presidency.
Right.
And it happened at the same time as we now have a Supreme Court ruling that basically says any official act he takes while in the White House is protected.
Right.
And those two things are, seem to be giving him some sort of a hall pass that could very much get abused. I don't want to, say he's crossed the line legally because I actually haven't taken a close look at that. But, he's done a lot that pushes it right up to the line. And I just don't think we want our presidents or their families getting rich off of the presidency.
All right. I think it's safe to say he's crossed the line legally, but otherwise, yeah, Megyn Kelly, get it. I mean, agree with a lot of that. Needs to be said. And I don't think most people, if they're being honest with themselves, whatever political party they are, like corruption. So there we are.